Hi, I'm Tina, and this is the Sisterhood Sleuths podcast created by Cathy Warshaw of Secret Societies and the Sisterhood Sleuths, where we don't just accept what we're told, we question it, because secrets are everywhere and curiosity is the key. So let me ask you something. Have you ever walked past something and later realized it mattered? Not because it was hidden, not because it was complicated, but because you didn't notice it when it mattered most. That moment is what we're stepping into today. Because the difference between people who understand the world and people who don't is not intelligence, it's observation, what you notice, and more importantly, what you don't. Let's slow this down. Most people think they're observant. They see what's in front of them, they hear what's being said, but they're not really observing. They're scanning. Quick, surface level, enough to get by, but not enough to understand. That's the difference. Scanning shows you what's obvious. Observation reveals what's real. Now imagine Chloe walking into a situation. She's not rushing, she's taking it in. Not everything, the right things. Because being observant is not about seeing more, it's about seeing what matters. Now here's something important. Observant people don't look harder. They look differently. They don't just focus on what's there. They focus on what stands out, what doesn't match, what doesn't belong. That's where their attention goes. Because that's where truth begins. Let's make this real. You're in a room, everything looks normal. People talking, moving, doing what they always do. Now imagine this. One person reacts slightly differently. Not dramatically, just differently. A pause before they speak, a glance that lasts a little too long, a reaction that feels slightly delayed. Most people miss that because it's small. But an observant person, they catch it. Not because they're trying harder, because they're paying attention to different things. Now Lily would notice that instantly. Not just the action, the timing. Because timing reveals intention. A natural reaction happens quickly. A controlled one takes time. And that time, even if it's small, is a clue. Now let's go deeper. Observant people notice patterns. Not just moments. They don't rely on one detail. They look for repetition. Because one moment can be random. But repeated moments, that's a pattern. And patterns tell the truth. Now imagine this. You notice something once. You think, that's strange. Then you move on. But then it happens again and again. Now it's different. Now it's not random. Now it means something. But most people don't track that. They don't connect moments. They experience them and move on. That's why they miss everything. Because observation is not just about noticing. It's about remembering, connecting, understanding how moments build over time. Now let's bring in Gil. Gil doesn't just observe people. He observes behavior under pressure. Because pressure reveals truth. When people are comfortable, they control what they show. When they're not, they reveal more than they intend to. That's where real observation happens. Not in perfect conditions, in imperfect ones. Now let's talk about something important. Focus. Because you can't observe everything. That's impossible. So observant people make a choice. What matters? What deserves attention? What doesn't? That choice is what separates them. Because if you try to notice everything, you miss what's important. But if you focus on the right things, you see clearly. Now let's go deeper again. Have you ever felt like something was off, but you couldn't explain why? That's observation before understanding. Your mind noticed something, but you haven't connected it yet. That's the beginning. Now imagine staying with that feeling, not dismissing it, not rushing past it, just staying with it. And then you start to see more details, more connections, more clarity. That's how observation grows, from noticing to understanding. Now, Luca would approach this differently. He doesn't just observe, he tests. If something seems off, he pushes it, changes the situation slightly. Because when you change the environment, you reveal different reactions. And different reactions reveal truth. Now let's bring this back to you. You're moving through your day, and now you're starting to notice more. Small things, subtle shifts, details that stand out. But here's the real question. Do you stay with them, or do you move on? Because observation doesn't happen in a second. It builds over time, through attention, through awareness, and through choosing to look a little longer. That's the skill. Not just noticing, staying. In part 2, we go deeper into what observant people actually focus on. Because it's not everything, it's specific. And once you understand that, you start seeing the world in a completely different way. Because being observant is not about noticing everything. It's about knowing what to focus on. That's the difference. Most people look everywhere. Observant people look intentionally. They focus on specific things that reveal more than they appear to. Let's break that down. First, observant people notice changes. Not just what is there, what is different. Because change is one of the strongest signals you can get. Something shifts, something moves, something feels slightly off from what it was before. That matters. Now imagine Chloe entering a familiar place. She doesn't just see the room, she compares it to what she remembers. What's different? What's out of place? Even if it's small, because small changes can lead to big answers. Now here's the key. You can't notice change if you weren't paying attention before. That's why memory matters. Not perfect memory, awareness-based memory. Remembering patterns, layouts, behavior. So when something shifts, you feel it, even before you understand it. Now Lily takes this further. She doesn't just notice change, she notices inconsistency. Because something can stay the same and still not align. Words that don't match behavior, reactions that don't match the situation, details that don't fit the pattern. That's inconsistency. And inconsistency is one of the strongest clues you can find. Because truth is consistent. It holds. It aligns. But when something isn't true, it struggles to stay consistent. And that struggle creates cracks. Now let's bring in something deeper. Observant people notice effort. Not just what people do, how hard they're trying to do it. Because natural behavior flows. Forced behavior requires effort. And effort shows. In tone, in timing, in small adjustments. Now imagine this. Someone is telling a story. Everything sounds fine, but they're thinking too carefully, choosing words slowly, pausing more than expected. That's effort. And effort means something. Not always something negative, but something worth noticing. Now Gil focuses on something else. He watches reactions under pressure. Because pressure changes behavior. When people are relaxed, they control what they show. When pressure is introduced, control slips. And in that moment, you see something real. Not always obvious, but real. Now let's go deeper. Observant people notice what's missing, not just what's there, because absence can be just as important as presence. Something that should be there, but isn't. A response that never comes. A reaction that's expected, but doesn't happen. That matters. Now imagine asking someone a question. You expect a reaction, but instead, there's nothing. No emotion, no response. That absence is information. And most people miss it because they're waiting for something to happen instead of noticing that nothing did. Now let's bring in Yuki. Yuki notices systems, patterns in behavior, patterns in structure, patterns in how things operate, because systems reveal consistency. And when a system breaks, it shows, even if it's subtle. That's where she focuses. Not on isolated moments, on how everything fits together or doesn't. Now May takes this even deeper. She notices cause and effect. If something happens, what caused it? If something changes, what triggered it? Because nothing exists in isolation. Everything connects. And when you understand the connection, you understand the situation. Now Aoife expands this even further. She notices patterns over time, not just in one moment, across many. Because truth isn't always visible immediately. It builds, slowly, through repetition, through consistency, through connection. And when you step back, you see it, clearly. Now let's bring this back to you. You're starting to notice more. Changes, inconsistencies, effort, absence, patterns. But now comes the real skill. Can you stay focused on what matters? Because it's easy to get distracted, to notice something and then lose it, to feel something and then move on. But observant people don't do that. They stay with it, not obsessively, intentionally. They track it. They let it develop, because real understanding takes time. Now here's something powerful. The more you practice this, the faster it becomes. What once took effort becomes natural. You don't have to think about it. You just see it. That's the level you're moving toward. Not forced observation, natural awareness. And once you reach that, you don't miss what matters because you know where to look. In part 3, we'll bring this all together. What it looks like when you're consistently observing at this level and how it changes the way you move through the world. Because observation is not just a skill, it's an advantage. Now you see differently. Not everything, not perfectly, but enough. Enough to realize most people are missing what's right in front of them. And now, you're not. That's where everything changes. Because observation is not just about noticing. It's about what you do with what you notice. Let's go back to that moment. You see something, a shift, an inconsistency, a reaction that doesn't align. Before, you might have ignored it. Now, you pause. Not for long, just enough to stay with it. Because staying is where understanding begins. Most people don't stay. They notice and move on. They feel something and dismiss it. But observant people, they hold the moment. They let it develop. Because the longer you stay with something, the more it reveals. That's the shift. From quick awareness to deep understanding. Now imagine Chloe in this moment. She doesn't react. She adjusts, subtly. Maybe she asks a question. Maybe she observes a little longer. Maybe she shifts her focus slightly. Not to control the situation, to understand it. That's the difference. Observation is not about control, it's about clarity. Now Lily would take everything she's noticed and connect it. Not just one detail, many. Because one detail can be misleading. But connected details, they form a picture. And that picture reveals truth. Now Gil turns observation into strategy. He doesn't just see what's happening. He asks, what does this mean? What does this lead to? What should I do next? Because observation without action is incomplete. But action without observation is dangerous. That balance is where power lives. Now let's go deeper. Because here's what most people don't realize. When you become observant, you become harder to mislead. Because you don't just hear words, you see behavior. You don't just see actions, you understand intention. And intention is what matters most. Now let's bring in Yuki. Yuki doesn't rely on what things appear to be. She relies on how they function. If something doesn't align, she notices. If something breaks the system, she tracks it. Because systems reveal truth over time. And if you're paying attention, you see it early, before it becomes obvious. That's the advantage. Now May would go even deeper. She would ask, what's beneath this? Because what you see is often just the surface, and observation allows you to go beyond that, to understand cause, effect, connection. That's where real clarity lives. Now, Aoife would remind you of something powerful. Everything connects. Every detail, every moment, every pattern. And when you step back, you see it. Not as separate pieces, as a whole. That's when everything becomes clear. Now let's bring this back to you. You're moving through your day, and now you're not just seeing, you're observing. You're noticing changes, inconsistencies, patterns, and most importantly, you're staying with them. That's the difference. Noticing is quick, observation takes time. But that time gives you something most people don't have: clarity. And clarity changes everything. Because when you see clearly, you make better decisions. You ask better questions. You understand people and situations on a deeper level. That's power. Not loud power. Not obvious power. Quiet power. The kind that comes from knowing what others don't. Now here's the truth. You won't catch everything. No one does. But you'll catch more. You'll see earlier. You'll understand faster. And that changes outcomes. Because the earlier you see something, the more control you have over what happens next. That's the advantage of observation. Not knowing everything. Knowing enough, soon enough. So the next time you notice something small, don't ignore it. Don't rush past it. Stay. Observe. Let it show you what it needs to show you. Because the smallest detail can lead to the biggest truth. Before we end today's episode, here's your sleuth mission for the week. I want you to practice observing one place you visit often. Maybe it's a classroom, a coffee shop, your workplace, a hallway, or even your own living room. The first time, just notice the obvious things. Then the next time you're there, look deeper. What changed? What feels different? Who behaves differently under pressure? Who watches more than they speak? What details do most people walk past without noticing? And here's the important part. Don't rush. Stay with the moment a little longer than usual. Because observation is not about seeing everything. It's about noticing what matters. By the end of the week, you may realize something surprising. The world has been showing you clues the entire time. Most people just move too fast to see them. And once you begin noticing, it becomes very hard to stop. This is the Sisterhood Sleuths podcast, where observation becomes your advantage and awareness becomes your strength. If this changed how you see the world, even slightly, then you're already moving differently, already stepping into a level of awareness most people never reach. And in the next episode, we'll go even deeper. The mystery of confidence, and why the most confident people see things others completely miss. Until then, this is the Sisterhood Sleuth podcast, and I'm Tina, reminding you to stay curious, stay aware, and remember, secrets are everywhere. Curiosity is the key.
This episode was brought to you by Secret Societies and the Sisterhood Sleuths, an award-winning mystery adventure franchise featuring books, podcasts, music, educational programs, puzzles, and a global community for curious minds. Join the conversation with fellow sleuths right now in our official Goodreads Mystery Club. Learn more at sisterhoodsleuths.net.